Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been ages since I posted on this Peak Talk Garage channel. The last time you saw me I was in the E38. Since that video, I've not really driven the car much apart from that massive Euro trip. So I did Austria, Slovenia, Italy and France. Car didn't miss a beat, but now it's stuck in limp mode. It's thrown up all sorts of error codes with idle air control. So that's work in progress. But today we are on the W204 C250 CDI Merc estate. Absolutely love the engine in this car. Love the efficiency. It's a blue efficiency model, so without all this on the floor, it normally has a flat floor, which makes it pretty low drag, and it'll do 16 mpg on the motorway. But now we're tackling the rear brake system. So what have I been up to? Well, I've just put a new rear right brake line in, which is the one that goes above the subframe under the underbody, and I've put copper nickel pipe on, the original steel ones, as you can see here, where the arch liner sits in here, which is just caked in shite. You get a big cake of shite here and it corrodes the steel one. So I'm going to do that one again in a minute, but whilst I'm waiting for my pressure bleeder to arrive, I thought I'd just tackle the handbrake mechanism, because this is a common issue on these cars. Basically what happens is the backing plate rusts and the springs that hold the shoes in pull through the little slots, and you end up with shoes just sat in the bottom of the handbrake mechanism. It makes a horrible grinding noise, blah, blah, blah. And the only way to sort of fix it is either bodge it with a washer in there, weld it up, or just put a new backing plate on. This backing plate was like 20 quid from Mercedes. It's an official part. You may notice it's been chopped in half. And why have I chopped it in half? Well, it's easier to get it over the rear hub. If you don't want to chop it in half, you've got to take the whole hub off. And I can't be asked to do that. This car's done 150,000 miles. It was still the original backing plate. So what I've done is I've cut it. It's still got two fixing bolts on each side of the cut, so it's proper stiff enough. And you obviously want to cut it, between those. So you've got half fixing bolts on that side, half on that side. These bolts here are 5mm Allen key bolts. These bolts here are 13mm hex. I couldn't find this out, and when I took the old one off, it was so rusty. There was so much crap on there. I couldn't tell if it was a Torx, I couldn't tell if it was a hex. I was at it with a T30 because I found something online and said it was a T30. But on my car, these are the original because they've got like the zinc coating on them. But yeah, it's a 5mm hex. But when you take these out, clean them. Get every last bit of rust and shit out from the hex. Clean it with a wire brush, hit it with all sorts of WD-40 and leave it. Because if you round them off, you're in a world of pain, because they go into this upright casting. Easiest to cut it in half, put it around, and you can put it around the hub. I've also replaced this little fork mechanism, which I bought as part of the handbrake rebuild kit. To get the little clevis in there is a pain in the arse, but the trick is undo the handbrake outer housing and pull it that way, and then you can access the little clevis pin in there. That'll probably be seized if you're doing this job, but it will come undone. You can hit it with a bit of heat and loads of WD-40, and then the pin that goes through that clevis isn't actually a very tight fit if it's not seized, so it will come out. What you basically need to do is pull it out, stand it on something there. Did you see that? Stand it on something there, or stood it on an end of a mallet, and whack the pin out, and then clean it all up, put a new one in, and a bit of copper grease on the pivots, and now it's nice and loose. I'm just waiting for this silicone to go off because I've added a bit more paint to this to protect it, and I've siliconed up the join just to protect the cut edge after I've painted it. And then I'm going to get the handbrake shoes back on, and fitting these shoes from memory is a fucking pain in the arse, because you got the springs which are under serious tension. You got to keep those knuckles in that groove there, and yeah, it's not easy. So we'll fit this up, we'll get it working, and then we'll tackle this other brake line, because that doesn't look good, that one there. Fresh brake lines. I've 3D printed some more little rubber grommets about where it goes around the body as well, because that brake line on a Union, where is it? There. And because of the extra weight of that, I don't want that sort of panting around and tapping the underbody. So I'll put a couple more grommets, rubber grommets on that. So you'll join me in a minute once I've sworn my fucking head off trying to get the shoes and springs all back together. Right, now if you're struggling to get these shoes on, I was too the first time I did this. On the other side, when I did this job, it took me about an hour of swearing. Now I've just done it in about 10 minutes, and I'm pretty sure I've come up with the best solution to do this. So step one, hang the top shoe off with the shoe spring just loose in that groove, and then make sure the shoe is engaged in the fork, in the slot in the top fork. Step two, get your small spring, which goes on the back of these shoes, and hang that off the top one, and then loop the bottom shoe off it. So you've got your top shoe on, and then the bottom shoe will be hanging down loose like that. Then with your left hand, get that bottom shoe, engage it into the fork in there, and squeeze them up together. Then with your right hand, it looks like that spring, that tension spring, here's the old one, it looks like on the bench, it'll never stretch between the two slots, and it's such a strong spring you can't do it by hand. But when this is all squeezed together, this fork, essentially, this fork mechanism, this linkage gets a bit shorter, and it actually comes together a lot more than you think. And then you can pop this in with your right hand with a screwdriver from there into the slot, and it's not that hard. I've seen loads of people like hanging off it with pliers, pry bars, trying to force it. But when you get that selector in the right position, it's actually not under too much tension. And then this being the weaker spring, you can manipulate this quite easily to get the adjuster part in there now. So like I said, step one, rest the top shoe on, get the main spring just hanging loose with that end in and the bottom end hanging down. Step two, hang the bottom shoe off the top one with the spring at the back, just loosely, and then compress that with those hands, making sure both shoe ends are in this fork, otherwise it will be too far apart, and then just loop the bottom spring there. And a bit of grease on these faces helps the spring slide in. Next step is to fit this part, make sure it's fully wound in so it's short as it can be. Line up the top and bottom slots so they're both facing the same way. Get the bottom one in, get your screwdriver in there, and pry the bottom shoe down as far as you can, and then slot this in, and then it'll probably go in on the piss, so that barrel adjuster will be like that. And then you lift up the top one, and it'll all, as you can see, I'm stretching that spring, it'll all come into line. Having these, this is the official Mercedes shoe pack, so it's well greased, and having that kind of port in there helps it all slide into place and align itself. Don't worry about that spring hitting the adjuster wheel. It's good design because it actually stops this self-rotating. So it's kind of a bodge, but it also helps this index so it doesn't just spin on its own and go out of adjustment. So yeah, it's all in now. And it wasn't a fight like the other side was, because if you follow that process, you don't really need muscle pry. I mean, I did that with a screwdriver. You don't really need pry bars. So all I do now is poke the retaining screws in, which is, you know, the downfall of this whole mechanism, really. That was the one I bodged it with. That was a spring I made into like a C shape to fix it temporarily. But yeah, what normally happens is the holes open up in here, and then springs pull out, they drop in, and then they just get eaten. Next top tip to assemble these retaining springs. Don't worry about trying to line up the slot on the hole in this behind it. All you need to do is get the brake pad, if it's a freshie, get it aligned with this part of the stamping on the back plate so it's flush, concentric. Then those two slots will line up. Next top tip, use a 10mm socket, so you can rotate the hub to align it, to push and compress your spring. And the 10mm socket is just the right size that when you turn it a quarter of a turn, it will grip the center part of the spring and turn that hook a quarter of a turn. So I can compress it and I can turn the spring with my 10mm socket. The spring hook is horizontal when that is at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Now it's at 6, it's locked in. So 10mm socket, line up your hub, line up the brake shoe with the molding, you know you're in the right place. Works every time. That's it, job all done now. In with the second line. Routed quite nicely behind the cables there. I'm just waiting for the 3D printer to finish printing off some more bungs, because these old ones are a bit baggy and they're not that tight on the hoses anymore. So yeah, I've got some more in the printer. I've Just gone around these box sections with a bit of clear wax oil before I put the trims back on, because when I took the wheel arch liner off, this whole thing was full up with mud, even though mud shouldn't get in there. It has, and I've just sprayed the brake lines as well with some wax oil and the other bits. But yeah, all back together now.